Hi, I'm David with EV World News. We talk about electric vehicles, green energy, and the stock markets. And I'm back today with our founder and chief editor, Bill Moore. How's it going today, Bill?
Going well, thank you. You had a good weekend.
Oh, yeah. I won a tennis tournament in St. Louis. I get to go to Arizona in November to play the Nationals for a team event representing Nebraska. So that's it's what I like to do. So,
Good
anyways,
for you.
yeah, I'm also in October. I'm going to be a keynote speaker at it's a similar Earth Day event. It's called Earth Stock. It's in Santa Monica.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so going to get up and speak about electric vehicles.
Well, good for you.
Yeah, so
Your
that's
EV world's rubbing off on you.
it is. It is. Yeah. I've been asked to come to the left coast to talk on EVs. That's a big step forward, right?
Well, boy, when was the last time I was in Santa Monica? Probably 15 years ago or better. So yeah, good. Give us some exposure.
Yeah, there's a place I like to get lemonade by the Santa Monica Pier. So I know that.
Okay.
Yeah. Anyways, all right. So let's start out with the Achilles heel of America's clean grid. Is the Greenbelt Express too vulnerable? Now, I really didn't see how this was playing out. Do you want to explain this a little bit, Bill?
Okay, so there was an article that I put on our RS stream about this. It's just south of us. It's down in Kansas that they're proposing to build this 800-mile long DC power grid that'll tie into all of the wind in Kansas, basically, and then transport that through one of these high capacity DC lines all the way to Illinois, and then apparently tie up to another grid system out there on the Indiana-Illinois border. And I thought, oh, God, that's the first I've heard of it, and we're right here just to the north of that. And I suppose at some point we would end up finding a way to tie into it too through the Southwest Power Pool. And then I got to thinking. I said, hold on now. Seeing what's happening with the warfare in the Ukraine and Russia, and the use of grids and all that kind of stuff that's happening there, and the fact that we've had some nutcases here in the United States who have decided to fire at power substations and things like that. Oh, boy, wouldn't that be a little bit sort of a security issue to have so much of our nation's power, clean power in this case, clean energy, being transmitted through a single power line? So I asked the AI. I think it was Chat GPT. Should we be concerned about the security of this power line? And what would be the better strategy? And of course, that's what generated that article and what you're seeing there.
Do you think it's really U.S. nut jobs that have been doing that and couldn't be like a foreign adversary?
It's all
vulnerabilities.
Look what happened in Spain and France, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's suspected that there was. It was either done by a freak thing of weather, or was it possibly the suspicion was
eco-terrorism?
Was it done by third power? Look what the Ukrainians are doing to the Russian airline Aeroflot and their grid system. When you put all your eggs in one basket, and somebody can throw a few stones in that basket, you could have lose all those eggs. So just asking the question of AI, and that's what AI came back with. It says, well, we have a choice. Do we build this highly efficient super highway of clean energy, that can take this power out of the Great Plains and share it with the rest of the eastern part of the country? Or do we decide to build a little bit more secure, diverse grid that sort of blends different things, but to do, energy storage and so on, but it's going to be at a higher cost. So how do we as a nation balance that? that just asked the question, and that's what the AI came back with, and I thought it was a pretty smart answer, actually.
Yeah, well, this is kind of interesting because it's talking about there's basically two big stations at each end, and both of them could be fairly vulnerable. If you
Yes.
tack something in the middle, it wouldn't be, but there needs to be aggressive security at both ends.
Exactly. So I just thought that was an interesting take on an earlier story that I'd read and thought, well, this is cool. I hadn't heard about this thing. And of course, the question that brought this up is because the current administration has decided that they're going to pull the funding for that. And I thought, okay, was that a smart decision or what to do that?
Time will tell.
That's why I decided to ask the question, and that was the answer that I think it was Chat GPT or Gemini. I use both interchangeably, so I thought it was interesting, and I'd share that with our readers.
Did the current administration say why they were trying to put a kibosh on this?
I haven't seen an explanation. No, I suspect because it's involved with wind energy.
Yeah.
That kind of the thing and of course they passed some legislation that you cannot use federal lands now. I think there's an executive order or something. You can't use federal lands to put wind turbines and solar farms on.
That seems kind of weird.
Yeah, it does seem kind of weird, doesn't it?
Yeah, man, what a change from one administration to the
next. We got to save the land whales in here in Kansas and North Dakota, and we don't want the wind hurting those poor whales.
Yeah, I'm so tired of there being such a huge gulf between the two political parties. It just makes no sense. I mean, it used to be who had the better. My budget was better than your budget, right? And we debated on how that budget was going to be spent. And now it's nobody even is concerned about the same things.
No. I don't think so. If you go and start listening to the guys that used to be the stalwart conservative pundits, they're all split from the current administration. I mean, I'm listening to them now. The Bulwark with Tim Miller and all these guys, Bill Crystal, was it Bill Crystal or whatever his name is? These various guys I would never listen to, I'm now listening to, and I'm a staunch left-winger.
Yeah, but it used to be, there used to be conservative Democrats too. There used to be conservative Democrats, and that pretty much went away.
And so there are segments starting to tentacle and kind of reach out to each other. I'm finding like I said, I personally am listening, to these guys who were once considered, Republicans, and therefore you don't want to listen to them as a Democrat, right? Well, no, I'm listening to them because I think there's a realization on both sides that we've gotten these parties too far of an extreme, and we need to figure out how to bring us back into a little bit more balanced approach.
I mean, Bill Clinton was more conservative by far than the last two Democrat presidents.
Here's the other thing. We're talking about this whole thing with the budget for the immigration service, right? These goons that are going around and flashing badge and wearing body armor and grabbing people off the street, nursing mothers, grabbing them, their budget's bigger than any other law enforcement agency in the country, right? And I have no idea why I was headed that direction. I'm starting to think of it, but we have to bring the back to where we get a little bit more stabilization, with regards to anything like energy policy, right? Yeah. We all recognize how smart it is. Monetarily, it's so much smarter to go with renewables, despite what the president has been saying. It's more expensive, it's killing the whales or whatever. The money is being put where the money is most effectively used. So
well, anyway, not all of our listeners know that I'm in nuclear, but even in nuclear, the advantage is it's base load power that's 20, it's reliable 24/7. It's not that it's cheaper. Everybody thinks nuclear is cheaper than
Oh
the other
no,
sources.
no.
It can't be cheaper than wind or solar.
Nope.
It could if things are managed poorly, but assuming competent people are running everything, it just isn't actually cheaper. And that is a bit of a challenge. People have all these ideas. People think that once a nuclear power plant is free, is built, it's basically free energy, and it's like it doesn't work that way.
No, it
It
doesn't
doesn't
work that
quite work
way.
that way. And
You got to pay off those bonds at some
yeah,
point.
yeah, there's expenses to run that going forward.
And
But anyways,
typically they're always, and typically they all overrun. They all
mhm.
go over budget for all
Well,
sorts
that's
of
the
reasons.
advantage of what, the work I'm doing in the small modular reactors are going to be built off site, and they're going to be shipped, and it's going to be
Yeah.
very.
Now I just saw an article over the weekend that one of the companies that's been heavily involved in that
Mhm.
has canceled those projects. Isn't doing them now. I don't know if you've
Oh, that's
seen that or
interesting.
not.
Now there's been all kinds of things in the space. There's a lot more companies in the SMR space than one would suspect, and there's just a lot of different technologies that they all. It's not a matter of whether or not they're safe or not. It's a matter of whether or not one technology is really better than another, and can financially survive. It's all going
Yeah.
to, so much of it, like I talk about all the time, is like the thing with EVs. It all comes down to economics. You can, there's lots of people want to save the world and all that, as long as it doesn't cost 3 times as much. And, which is why we poo-poo on hydrogen all the time. But anyways, let's go to this ICCT. Yeah, Bill and I we agree on a lot of things, and there's a lot of things we don't agree on. So it's just, we're not just everything's great.
That's why I'm on the left side of the screen. He's on the right.
There you go. There you go. Yeah. Anyways, so what this ICCT study ends debate: EVs drastically cleaner than gas cars. I get these comments all the time that EVs really are more polluting because
No.
you dug some big hole in the Congo or some big hole in China and you polluted and all these things. And it's really funny to see this, and the deficit of EVs. They're clearly now. Once again, this was a European study, right?
This was a European study, exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's clearly
And
showing that it takes 1 to 2 years for an EV to be cleaner than a gas car. That's not very long in the life of a car.
Not very long at all.
Yeah, and ultimately, it's 66 to 69% lower life cycle emissions, and that's because almost all of those emissions have to do with the actual mining
and refining of the material.
mining and refining.
Exactly.
And that's going to change over time, because over time, we're not only are the batteries repurposed, but later on they'll be recycled.
Right.
If that's even the ongoing technology, 20 years from now.
Right.
The battery technology, we constantly seeing it evolve, and we see new ideas, these game-changing ideas. The Toyota 745-mile solid-state battery, which why? I mean, if it's a third the weight or half the weight of a regular battery, that makes a difference. But it would make more sense.
Let me share something of interest with you. So there's an article I posted today in the RS stream where the guy has driven a Lucid, right? I think it was probably a Gravity, or maybe it was a Lucid Air, one of the Lucid models, down the New Jersey Turnpike, and he said, and I think he said it was 4.2 or something like that miles per kilowatt hour, right? And I think he said it worked out to be 158.6 or something like that miles per gallon equivalent, right? And I just over the weekend I charged up the Bolt, And then did some running around with shopping and going over and working on the airplane and thing. And so I'm at 5.2 miles per kilowatt hour. So I asked the AI, what's that equivalent to in miles per gallon equivalent, right? 200 miles per gallon equivalent.
Wow.
And I have I think it's a 66 kilowatt hour battery. How many miles now can I drive on a full charge?
Well,
over 300 miles. In fact, 346, I think it was 346 miles on a 2022 Chevrolet Bolt.
yeah,
Now,
but this means you have to drive like Bill Moore. Okay. So
well, you have to drive like Bill Moore, driving around Papillion and Omaha, Nebraska. That's not from here to Kansas City or Denver or Des Moines or Minneapolis or Chicago, right?
yeah.
Where
I mean,
you're
for the record,
having to drive 75 just to keep getting run over by everybody else.
right. Yeah.
Okay?
So we have 35 to 45 mile per hour. Well, actually, we don't really have 45 mile per hour streets unless you count 370. We have all these 35 mile per hour.
Exactly. And
streets.
part of those trips that I was making, by the way, are on 370 at 55 and 60 miles an hour. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. But what I'm getting at is like you said, there's not a place in our area where you're going to drive 70. There might be somebody going that fast on
yeah, if I get over onto Interstate 80, yeah, I'll have to drive that.
But I'm just saying your speeds, you probably average in the 35, 40 range most of the time, which is probably the real sweet spot for an EV. Whereas for a gas car, what's that sweet spot? I think it's right at 55, which was why we used to have the 55 mile per hour speed limits all the time.
Which is interesting because, again, this morning I posted a story about a guy driving a Rivian who said, I'm just going to do an experiment here. I'm going to reduce my speed from 65 to 60 miles per hour and see what that does to my kilowatt, miles per kilowatt.
I bet it was huge.
And he only picked up, interestingly, half a mile, 0.5 miles per kilowatt improvement. But still.
Yeah, but that's like a 15% improvement.
Yeah.
That's a pretty big increase just for that, because the Rivian is, looks much like a Range Rover. It's got
it's
very
just a big
boxy.
Block. It's a big block box.
Yeah, it's not aerodynamic. It's not trying to set up any. It's not like the Aptera that's trying to see if it can be the most air efficient car driving down the road. That's why it looks like an airplane.
Or Lucid, which is probably the most efficient among the luxury EVs in the market.
Right. I'm just saying that's a pretty big difference. And I know I've had times, even in a gas car, I'd noticed that if I drove on a 2-lane highway where the speed limit was 10 miles per hour lower than driving on the freeway, my gas mileage went up quite a bit, and, it's, very similar, but you start taking a Tesla to Lincoln and you're driving 80 miles per hour, and that range goes down pretty quick.
Yeah,
there's
absolutely.
When you start getting up above 70, those numbers
you're pushing
become far less efficient.
Yeah, I think there's an article on EV World from last week where it talks about what happens to the range of electric cars at 75 miles an hour. And it was showing that different ones, their range, decreases depending on the efficiency of the design of the vehicle.
That'd be an interesting one to show on the channel at some point, because it's interesting kind of to see.
Yeah, it's I think you have to go back a week or so back into the RS stream, but it's there.
Nice. But anyways, one of the things was we keep hearing this about how EVs aren't as green as people say. Well, yeah, they're not completely zero emissions if you count the production of the vehicle, but over the lifetime of the vehicle, it has about a third of what the gas car does.
Well, exactly. And we're not saying anything at this point about the huge holes in the ground that it takes to pull iron. I mean, the amount of iron that the world uses is
staggering.
dwarfs anything that would be pulled out to make an EV battery. I mean, that's iron. Then you talk about all the orphan oil wells and natural gas wells that are plugged or not plugged, where they've sucked the oil up out of the ground, and it's invisible. It's not like a copper mine, or an iron ore mine, a big hole in the ground that looks like a meteor crater made it.
I remember one time we reported on the amount of iron ore that was dug up, and the amount per human that was dug up annually
it
was more.
Staggering.
It was like 2 to 3 times your weight in iron was dug up annually for every human. It was just the staggering amount of weight that it made no sense why we'd be going through it. It's also, though, like we were talking about here in the United States, we use almost 100 kilowatt hours of energy every day as a human living in the United States. And most of that's used, could be used in airplanes, manufacturing. Right. It's not being used in your house or your car.
Not to keep the lights on here.
It's not to keep the lights on, but it was really hard to fathom how much energy the United States uses.
And this is why they say that, what is it, somewhere in May or June, in the middle of the year, we've already used up the Earth's budget, right? And that for the whole planet to have the lifestyle that you and I have grown accustomed to and enjoy, you'd have to have, 7 other planet Earths? With just the planet, not the people. Just those planets as stockpiles to take care of everybody else, to live the lifestyle we have here in the United States.
All right, so let's talk about our top topic. I see lots of people bouncing in to see what's going on.
Yeah,
might as well post something up on the screen. This is from a LinkedIn post, but it was a good picture and I think this is what they're assuming it's going to look like. Okay.
I haven't seen that. That's
I think this is an AI generated.
I think I would agree with you.
Okay. I don't think this is the actual look, but that does look like what a Ford might look like. So Ford is coming up, and then Ford has this place they call their Skunk Works, where they've been working on EVs. And there's an announcement coming up on Monday, this coming Monday, the 11th. Jim Farley is supposed to reveal a $25,000 EV pickup that Ford is bringing to market. Now, this looks a lot like their Maverick, doesn't it? It's 4 doors, little bed. I don't know if that'll be it. I think it's going to be more probably a 2-door, like what Slate is doing, to try to hit that price point. And I think it makes a lot of sense. If people will say that, there's no market for 2-door vehicles, but a 2-door pickup truck, for most people, you're either going to be single or you're going to be a family that has more than one car, right?
Yep. Or you're going to be retired.
Just
you and the missus.
Right. So you're not going to have the same need for, you're going to have 2 cars. If you're going to have one of these, you're either going to be single or you're going to be in a 2-car household where you have another vehicle. And it's kind of like the argument a lot of times about EVs, right? People always say, well, in the United States, the average EV owner owns 2.5 cars in their household.
Yep.
And so one of those is gas, and at least there's generally one electric.
Yep.
And Captain Ron. China's been building 1 to 3 new coal power plants to keep their electricity usage. Yeah, so we report on this all the time. It's not just China. China and India are both significantly boosting their coal production between now and 2030, while at the same time, they're hitting records in solar, predominantly some wind, and some other things, but they're in a huge energy deficit compared to what the United States uses. We use an enormous amount of energy compared to other countries per person. And they're simply trying to keep up because energy is wealth. So a lack of energy means a lack of economic development in your country. And I don't know, it's one of these tough things. We realize as the United States, we're down to 18% coal, and yet we're reducing coal usage, and these other countries are going the other way. But anyways, back to the topic at hand, the $25,000 truck. Yeah, this is a pretty exciting moment. So Ford promises a Model T moment for the new EV reveal on Monday. So during its second quarter earnings call, Jim Farley announced the company would reveal on Monday, and this is it massive overhyping? What's really going to happen? They're going to do the unveiling event in Kentucky. They really want to try to compete with Tesla and get in on the EV and the stock price issue. So that's one of the things. I mean, Ford stock has never seen, numbers like Tesla has been able to hit. So Ford expects it to be a low-cost EV that'll be profitable for them within 12 months. And it's been kept very quiet. And Ford's been building new battery plants in Kentucky and Michigan to make LFP batteries. And these may be, these things may be tied together. Let's see. And it'll be interesting to see if Ford can nail a reliable EV at less than 30,000. Is that really a game changer? I think it probably is. I mean, Tesla's still yet to put out the cheap EV, right? That was one of the things we keep hearing about Model 2 and all that. And we haven't seen that come to fruition. So it'll be interesting to see what comes about with this. But it is certainly
wasn't Tesla supposed to have an announcement here this month regarding their lower cost vehicle?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I may have missed that.
I thought they were supposed to have something happen this month.
And well, of course,
that could be overshadowed by the Ford announcement. So,
yeah. I was going to tell you. So there was kind of a funny article that you had picked up. It was, E-Cite Motors outpaces Tesla, Rivian, and Lucid with breakthrough EV tech and stock surge. And I looked at that and I thought, E-Cite, I've not heard of these.
So that's why I went to the AI again, and I said, I've never heard of these people. Who are they? Tell me about them. And then that results in the article that immediately subsequently follows that one. Yeah. Penny stock play.
Yeah. So it's an OTC pink sheet company.
Yes.
And this is really funny because they're releasing a lot of press releases, and they've actually, I'm going to show some stuff on them here in a second, because it's not, a bad little, thing they have set up, but it wasn't exactly what I expected. I didn't expect it to be an OTC pink sheet stock trading for basically 1.2 cents a share
with a handful of CGI illustrations of cars they're planning to build, a motor that I gather really doesn't exist apparently, or whatever. I thought, who are these guys? And of course, there you go. So before you put any money here, guys, read the follow-up article that's on EV World. So,
yeah, well, at 1 cent a share, you're not gonna go broke buying a few thousand shares.
Yeah,
you could put $1,000 in and have 100.
Or kiss it goodbye.
$1,000 give you 100,000 shares.
I've invested in a couple of companies like that in the past. Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting to see. I'm really curious. Okay, so Vapor Brands International acquired them.
What an appropriate name for a company.
I know. I wondered what. I was trying to do some research to find out what Vapor Brands originally was doing. So I'll give you an example. One of the companies I consult for that has EV patents, it's also a penny stock that trades for 60 cents a share, which almost trades for a weak NASDAQ company. It is mostly a medical tech company, but the company I think it started out in the mortgage industry or something like that.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
this stock had been around since the 70s.
vapor brands. What could that be? A one of those vaping cigarettes?
I don't know. I've wondered it's possible that it could have been something like that. But they bought the company up, and I just thought it was,
Yeah.
it was kind of humorous. But they are definitely putting out press releases. They've got all these
Concepts.
ideas.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm getting out of that. But I mean, yeah, it's nice looking. But they're not there yet. Their
No.
total market cap on the stock is like $5 million.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So go to the article above that on the stream.
Oh, hold on a second. Give me a second here, because that was just kind of a funny one. I saw that and it's like,
Well,
what?
I've seen a few of those over the years.
Oh,
And
yeah,
then
give me a
this thing to
second.
pop out, and it's going to be competitive with.
Oh, we're talking about the Ferrari one.
No, not the Ferrari. There's one below the Ferrari. There's the one. There's the press release.
Oh, are we talking about the one about Rivian?
No.
What is it? Oh, I see. So there's one says, "What is E-Cite Motors?" A look
Exactly.
behind the Tesla
That's the one
killer.
that our
Oh,
little friendly AI wrote.
got it. Oh, yeah. Let me pop this one up. This is oh, what do we got here? Got another look here. Another,
That's
AI
one of
look.
that's their EV GT model.
Yeah.
But if you go to the very bottom of that, again, this is being written by AI. I just ask it questions and I said, go find information for me and tell me what you find out. And this is
So this is interesting. So a corporate structure, a penny stock pivot. A first and most critical fact to understand: E-Cite is not a standalone startup. It's a subsidiary of Vapor Brands International Inc. A company trades on the over-the-counter markets under the ticker symbol Vapor. It was commonly known as a penny stock. Unlike companies on the NASDAQ, pink sheet companies have minimal financial reporting, are highly speculative, and are often subject to extreme volatility based on press releases rather than fundamental business performance. Well, that's not just penny stocks, I'll tell you. And Vapor Brands has a history of pivoting business models, and E-Cite represents its latest venture into the EV space. Well, that's true of the other ones that I do stuff for. So they're constantly. So this is the approach of the management of Vapor. Okay. So, and I can tell you this, if somebody's listening to this. So the idea would be, if I liked a company and they had they had something decent. Now, I don't like ones like this where they don't have anything. So these guys probably have no revenue. But if somebody has revenue, they have some profit, there's a way to quickly take them. You could quickly take this company to the Toronto Stock Exchange in Canada.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And there's a couple of advantages.
I've lost money there.
Well, yeah, but with the Toronto Exchange, so let's say I could get a valuation on this company of, say, $20 million. Okay. And we went public on the Toronto Stock Exchange, and they brought in $4 million in cash for selling 20% of the company on the stock exchange. So now they got $4 million in cash, but the other 16 million, if it's all held by the company, they could go out and they could borrow up to half of that, 8 million. So then they have easy access to a line of credit for $8 million on top of the 4 million they brought in. Okay. Now this could be done on the NASDAQ too, but the problem is I can get somebody public on the Toronto Exchange for about $200,000 all in. Right. If I do it on NASDAQ, we're talking 800,000 to 1.2 million.
A lot more money. Yep.
It's a lot more expensive. So, and there's even some other exchanges you could do this with. The OTC is like one of the worst ones, but the thing here for E-Cite is that they can be spun off. So this Vapor company already has 300 investors minimum for them to have gone public, even on the OTC. Mm-hmm. And so what happens is E-Cite can take advantage of that, and they can go public on another exchange in a 6 to 9 month time frame instead of it taking years. Now they've been with them since 2022, so that obviously nothing's really ever taken traction there.
Yeah.
So, but I'm just saying there are strategies, but for me, I wouldn't really even consider somebody if they're not doing at least $1 million net profit a year. Okay, so
Right.
I I understand where they're trying to go with that. Okay,
Right.
but I have also done enough of these kind of projects to see it's
Right.
really hard to make them go anywhere.
Yep.
Okay, because
Yep.
you've got to get enough then private capital dumped into that space to make that company have money. But if you can get somebody to invest in that car company, let's say somebody decided to invest $10 million into that, okay, then all of a sudden, one of the concepts in going public is that 10 million would represent 10x that amount in public value. And so then it might be able to go public at $100 million valuation. They wouldn't go public as vaporware, which is the one that's on the OTC.
Right.
They would go under this spinoff company, which had 100 million valuation, would be enough to go on NASDAQ if they wanted, or another big exchange. The Toronto's simply easier to do. So I don't normally talk about this. This is, if somebody ever wants to chat about this, this is actually what I do. Okay. So I understand, and Bill probably.
So talk to him, not me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I've done the Toronto
Bill,
exchange.
Bill,
I'm
on the other
money.
side. Bill, you're pointing the wrong direction. There's nobody on the side you were pointing to.
Well,
point the other way. No, that's the wrong way. I'm not over there. Point your other hand. Point with your other hand. There I am. There I am. I'm over there.
in my view, you're over there.
Oh, really? Oh, that's funny. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. So on mine, you're over here.
Yeah, that's where I am.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, but anyways, yeah, that's what I do. That's
by the way, on the issue of the coal production in China, I just ran a little query of Pi AI, and it says in 2024 the Chinese are committed to building 100 gigawatts of new coal power generation.
100 gigawatts?
100 gigawatts.
In what time frame?
Well, they started in 2024.
Okay, and that's between now and 2030?
It didn't say. It just said that they could. That was the plan, to build 100 gigawatts, and it started in 2024. So I'd have to dig more, but I didn't want to be off screen.
They're doing more, not per year, but between now and 2030. I wouldn't. They're probably doing 40 plus gigawatt, or maybe it's 80 plus.
But that's at least, it would be interesting, and we should do this once we're off air here, of looking at what they're doing in terms of renewables installed and how that compares to the coal that they're installing and using. How do those, is it 100 times more coal than renewables, or are they more closely balanced? I don't know the answer to that. It'd be interesting to know.
Some of the things that's kind of interesting when you're comparing energy to energy. So solar really, for the same amount of gigawatts, only produces about 1/8 the amount of energy that a nuclear facility the same gigawatt does. Okay, because of the efficiency and consistency of the energy. Okay. Right. So a 12 gigawatt nuclear facility.
And I have an article, an article on that very subject that I did this weekend. So again,
oh, nice.
You can,
yeah.
Go ahead.
So a 12 megawatt small modular reactor for nuclear would produce about the same amount as 100 megawatt hour solar facility. Okay. And that would be roughly the same. Now, the solar facility would also need to have battery storage to go with it,
right,
to really match up. But assuming that's all in place, then it matches up. But it's about $100 million to build that solar facility. It's about and it's not yet, but pretty soon it'll be about $100 million to build that first equivalent in the nuclear space.
Yeah.
But that's, say we're talking 12 megawatts. It's pretty damn similar between the two. It's not a huge difference. The big difference is that nuclear facility would take up about 60,000 square feet of dirt, and the other one would take up about a square mile.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a big difference in size. But anyways, it's interesting to go through all of the energy math. It boggles the mind. That's why we have Mike on Wednesdays, so Mike can explain energy math. And it's funny too, because I've had people get really in the weeds in some of the YouTube comments that I can tell they work at power plants. They really want to talk and show what they know on the discussion.
And we thank you for contributing and participating.
But anyways, I wish E-Cite good luck. We love seeing this kind of stuff. We love seeing electric vehicle innovation in the U.S. But we've seen Fisker and Lordstown and
that just barely scratches the surface.
I know there's been so many of them, but hopefully they can get some traction. I was doing stuff for Derek Automotive for a while, and they're still selling e-bikes and stuff like that, but they've kind of given up on, or it seems like they've given up on their EV trucks.
Yeah.
And, the truth is, I think it's pretty hard to compete when now all of a sudden Ford's about to.
Now you got Ford.
Dump one for 25,000.
You got Slate and you got Ford and look, God, who am I leaving out? There's somebody else that's doing a truck. Oh. Anyway, yeah, they come and unfortunately they go.
No, it's just so many of them. All right. So we had this article about, are EV batteries fit to run a home or power the grid? Some car brands are saying no. So one of the things we talk about a lot is how people look at the grid can't handle EVs, and in reality, EVs may be the solution, because we talk about all these types of renewable energy and everything, and people's cars being hooked up to bidirectional chargers allow power to be stabilized across the grid.
Right.
And everything from electric school buses to cars, trucks, whatever. And apparently some of the manufacturers don't want their EV batteries used this way.
Yeah.
And
this is an article, by the way, of Australian Focus. So this is that's kind of I would assume it applies to other non-Australian, entities, but this particular one focuses on Australia.
Australia's kind of ahead of us. Okay. They're a country population-wise similar to California. They probably, I assume EV adoption is probably similar to California. But I don't know how much it really is.
Well, I wouldn't say that. And interestingly, most of those cars are coming out of China anyway.
Right, I get that, but they're getting BYD cars.
Yep.
I shouldn't say they're getting less expensive EVs.
Right.
Okay,
right.
They're not low quality; they're just less expensive. But solar is incredibly popular in Australia. So far more homes in Australia use solar in the United States. So in the example here in the picture, you see the home. It's got solar panels on the roof, has a bidirectional charger, meaning the car can charge the home. And you have energy coming from the solar panels to the car during the day. And then at night, the car could return energy to the house.
Yep.
And you also see over here, here's a light pole and transmission lines running away. You also have power coming from the grid to power your house at night, charge your car. So what happens is you get in these situations where you can use energy arbitrage. So the idea is that you are supplying energy to the grid when it's normally expensive, and you're taking energy from the grid when it's cheap. And you're also supplementing it in Australia predominantly with the solar panels. And anyways, there ends up being an issue with this, and I'm not sure which, does it get into the weeds of which companies are
No,
pushing back
no,
on this?
it really doesn't. The focus here is that I saw was basically how the government down there has become. I think it's their minister Bowen, Chris Bowen, I believe is the name,
Hmm.
is very supportive of this, in contrast to other countries where it's not. So there's a push to get wider adoption, but as you're right, the car companies are a little hesitant because they don't know what that's going to do to the warranty that they put on on the batteries on the cars.
But this is interesting. It's Tesla. Tesla's the one that's a pain. So, so the Cybertruck supports charging output beyond 12 volts, which is the Cybertruck. There's third-party equipment that allow you to charge your home, but Chapman says doing this will void the warranty of a car worth more than 100 grand. They're reluctant to have you, at least some of the cars Tesla sells in Australia, they don't want used to do V2G. And this could be the age of the car, but that's also discharging the cars more, I assume.
Yep.
So
Yep.
it's both charging and discharging. So, maybe they don't want the warranty to last as long with what they warranty.
Well, yeah, and we know that there's Tesla has apparently been playing some games with the odometers on the cars that make the warranties elapse sooner than they might otherwise. This was reported here. I don't know what, earlier this spring. So yeah, well, you can understand the car maker's perspective. I mean, they don't want to have to go in and replace a battery under warranty because the battery was abused, or what they would think would be abused. Because what do they know about what the utility is doing and what the homeowner's charging system, what it is, and what kind of pull it's placing on the battery. So I can understand where they're coming from. I think obviously this is a positive direction we need to go.
Yeah.
No question about it.
In the example here, it's showing your car can do vehicle to load, and that would be basically just plugging 110 or type usage or whatever I'm not sure what it is they use in Australia, but just to run power tools, from your car battery. Pretty much, you may need an adapter, but pretty much most EVs have some ability to do this if you have the adapter to hook up to your charging cable or your charging port. But the next level then is vehicle to home. And that's what I was saying, where you could power your home in a power outage, or you could power it at night or whatever. But then the third is vehicle to grid. And that's where I was talking about arbitraging energy back and forth with the grid that would help pay for your car. Maryland, for instance, the United States has already approved this. They're the first state to start doing something to allow energy arbitrage. But I thought this was just, I guess I can see from the manufacturer's perspective about, wanting to do
Well,
that.
I would assume at some point the IEEE, is that correct? I think International Electrical. Anyway, the trade groups that are involved in this will probably take this up if they haven't already, and look into what is impacted and how the algorithms and the software and things can be adjusted to make this a possibility. We know, in talking about solar, right? You got a solar farm or a wind farm has to have battery backup. Why? If you've got in an area that's got 100,000 electric cars, that's your battery backup.
Right. Well, one of the things too, Tesla sells their Powerwall batteries. So they do sell EV batteries for you to use to power your home. And I guess they'd also rather sell that too. So, I mean, that's another income source for Tesla.
Are we gonna talk about the battery spying on you?
Oh, well, I was thinking we would save that for tomorrow.
Oh, okay. Save it. Yeah, have you and
because we've already gone for 50 minutes today, and we've had
Oh,
a big crowd today. I don't want to keep everybody just
well,
watching
thanks
us all
everybody. So
day.
tune in tomorrow because we're going to talk about, these guys are going to talk about how the Chinese, which they're here, let me background. The reason I posted that story is because in reading the original report said that MIT researchers discovered this. And it gave a link, and I followed the link to the original abstract story, and there was nobody from MIT listed in that story. And I said, what? What is this? So again, I go and I say, okay, what's the background on this story? Who are the researchers and where are they from and what's going on here? And that produced the article again that's on the website in our articles ARSI section of the story. MIT had nothing to do with this. This is three researchers from three of the leading Chinese universities that made the discovery how you can very simply create and track specific cars based on how you charge your battery. It's fascinating. So tune in tomorrow for that.
Yeah, yeah. And Bill and I will be here. We're your non-AI hosts of EV World. At some point, the show will be taken over by robots. But right now,
Absolutely. I
until the
keep
robots
worrying
replace
about that,
us.
actually.
Yeah. All right. Well, folks, thanks for chiming in, and I'll be back with engineer Mike Herzog tomorrow. Otherwise, everyone, have a great day.